Chapter 13, The Chase.
A thoroughbred of the streets, Jimmy acted on instinct. He didn't wait to be nabbed. In a burst of straw, he shot up and made a leap for the door. Cutwater, startled, lost the merest breath of time, but it was enough. Jimmy flung open the door and ran. His long arms outstretched, Cutwater lurched after him, and Prince Brat followed. Jimmy vanished into the wild green tangle. He jumped into a great fallen log, ducked under low-hanging branches, and like a rabbit made sudden changes in direction. He could hear Cutwater close behind, breathing like a bellows. "I'm on your track. Stop before I get aggravated with you, Prince." Jimmy covered the ground at full tilt. Leaves crackled under his feet. Gah, he thought, he might as well be leading the confounded parade for all the noise he was making. He reached a small clearing and half jumped out of his skin. Sniffing near the skeleton white roots of an upturned hollow tree stood a wild beast. A bear! Jimmy would have preferred Cutwater's own company, but before he could find his legs, the hairy beast took flight. It went crashing away to Jimmy's left. Jimmy got his breath back. Then, almost without thinking, he dove into the hollow of the dead tree and snugged himself in. Moments later, he caught the merest glimpse of Cutwater cupping an ear. Turning on his heels, the rattle-boned man gave a shout. "Practically got you by the hind legs, pesky Prince!" Jimmy let out a small sigh of relief. Cutwater would have a mighty surprise if he caught that bear by the hind leg. As the sounds of the chase grew fainter, Jimmy crawled out of the hollow root. The sun was now high enough to send down smoky rays of sunlight through the treetops, which was the river. And then he saw Prince Brat, his face lobster red from running, at the edge of the clearing. Unfaithful servant," he protested, glaring hard at Jiminy. Until this moment, Jimmy hadn't had a moment's pause for anger, but now fury shot into his eyes. "Curse this bladder-tongued, hateful prince! You betrayed me! You'd have deserted me without a care." Jimmy bristled. "Ain't it me they think is the prince? If you hadn't pointed me out under the straw, Cutwater wouldn't have flown off to pick up my tracks, and we could have crept away dead easy. I wouldn't be running my lungs out." The prince pondered this for a moment. He nodded. "Then I forgive you." Jimmy was speechless for a moment. "Forgive me? Don't trouble yourself, my good and loyal prince, and get yourself another whipping boy." "But I have not dismissed you from my service," said the prince calmly. "I dismiss myself," Jimmy fired back. "I'll get where I'm going, and you can find your own way back to the castle. I'll likely go with you." "Not likely." Jimmy turned to the right and beat his way back into the foliage.
Chapter 14, In which is heard a voice in the forest.
Jimmy could hear Prince Brat following in his tracks step by step. He grimly pressed on. Brambles reaching out like cat's claws tore at their fine garments. The forest trees rose all around them like prison bars. Finally, Jimmy spun around. "Lay off! Go your own way!" "This way suits me," said the prince. "Well, don't follow me. I've no more idea than a gnat where I'm heading." "Silence," whispered the prince with a turn of his head. "Hear that?" They froze, the two of them. A voice came wailing through the woods. "Tunya! Petunia!" And then a young woman appeared barefoot and jangling with bracelets. She moved through the trees as quickly as a wood spirit. Petunia! She carried a coiled rope in her hand and held outstretched in the other an amber chunk of cob honey. "Come here, darling. Come to Betsy." Suddenly, as if sensing a presence in the trees, she headed toward Jimmy and the prince. "Petunia! You there naughty rascal. Smell the honey. Come feast yourself, pet." Jimmy didn't know what to make of this. Woman, girl, really? For as she drew closer, he reckoned she couldn't be more than 14 or 15 years old. He stepped out in full view, with the prince clinging to him like a shadow. "Miss?" She stopped short. "My eyes. Who are you?" "Lost," said Jimmy. "Would you know which way to the river?" "Course I do. Ain't we heading for the fair, me and Petunia?" "Have you seen him?" "Petunia? Got loose, he did. My dancing bear. World famous. Scared me out of my skin, Jimmy replied and pointed back there. She turned on her heels and started off. Hey, Jimmy shouted, where's the river? Where it's always been, due south. Which way is south? Betsy paused and set her arm like a signpost. Straight on. You certain? Certain, I'm certain. Didn't Pa always say I had a head like a compass? Rest him in peace. And she was gone. Their clothes were ripped to tatters by late morning when Jimmy and the prince caught sight of the sparkling river, and almost at once they dove back into cover. Mounted on the high stepping horses, a pair of soldiers were advancing along the river road. They must be searching for you, Jimmy whispered. If they catch me with you, I'm done for. Prince Brat didn't seem to be listening. His eyes were fixed on the passing soldiers. Look here, Jimmy muttered impatiently. I can't have you sticking to me like a barnacle. Ain't you had a snout full of running anyway? Go back with the soldiers. The prince shook his head. Let them pass. And then he added, with the faintest of smiles, this is the first time no one has had fits because I got my clothes grimy. The ladies keep me clean and starched as a pillowcase. But you're a prince. Is my face dirty as yours? You don't belong knocking about outside the walls. Prince Brat gazed off into the distance. Did you have lots of friends when you lived on the streets? Heaps. Heaps, of course. And hardly a one of them wouldn't fight me over a bone. Go back. Your pa must be having double fits of worry. The prince answered with a flash of resentment. I might as well be stuffed and hung on the wall like a stag's head. For all he notices me, you remind him often enough with all your pranks. How long are you going to let him sweat and stew? I don't know, declared the prince. Maybe I'll never go back. This is the best time I've ever had. Gaw, Jimmy muttered.